welcome to The Narrowing Path, Walking the Spiritual Walk. My name is Stephen Eiderstein, and thank y'all for joining me again today as we do the daily reading from James Allen's Daily Meditations. And really excited to see this one. Looking forward to reading this one today because the last couple have been about freedom, really about peace, really about justice and owning our own sufferings and our own freedoms and pursuing truth and things like that. It's been a great last couple of days, and so let's see what the 23rd brings us. This will be fresh to you and fresh to me, meaning you'll get my genuine response, reaction, observations, and what I relate to about the reading, because this will be the first time reading it on this podcast. So here we go. March 23rd of James Allen's Daily Meditations. Joy is to the sinless. The wise man knows. For him, anxiety, fear, disappointment, and unrest have ceased. And under whatever condition or circumstances he may be placed, calmness will not be broken. And he will bend and adjust everything with capacity and wisdom. Nothing will cause him grief. When friends yield up the body of flesh, he knows that they still are, and does not sorrow over the shell they have discarded. None can injure him, for he has identified himself with that which is unaffected by change. The knowledge which brings peace, then, is the knowledge of unchangeable principles, arrived at by the practice of pure goodness, righteousness, becoming one with a man becomes immortal, unchangeable, indestructible. Let me read that all again. That line. The knowledge which brings peace, then, is the knowledge of unchangeable principles arrived at by the practice of pure goodness, righteousness, becoming one with which a man becomes immortal, unchangeable, indestructible. Peace is to the pure. Wow. I love the strength that's in this one. So good. It's a fantastic reading. I always say fantastic. But it really is. It really just stands out with its strength and its steadfastness, really. Because when we look at this, and when I was reading one part in the middle there, it talks about the body of flesh, it threw me for a loop, and then I realized what it was actually talking about, knowing that a person still exists, in a person, physical body passing away, things like that. And I thought that was incredible. So the way he phrased that and presented it was really great. So let's go ahead and go back through this one. That's because, just what it opens with is a very impactful statement in and of itself. Joy is to the sinless. Right there. That's big stuff. Very big stuff right there. Joy is to the sinless. When you have renounced that, we talked about renunciation. Letting our sins go. We talked about disassociating from our sins, understanding that they are shortcomings, or understanding that they're sins, understanding that they're selfish passions, right? When we understand that and we separate from them, try and make a conscious effort to do differently, right? We do the work, we do the actual stopping the behavior to be able to see the thoughts and then changing the thoughts, and being able to purify our own hearts, purify our thoughts, purify our actions, right? This is a process that we practice, right? When we get through that and we continue to process and work through this stuff, we get to experience these moments of just blissful joy, just happiness and contentment in a way that I didn't know was possible. I'm not saying I am completely sinless, but I have moments where I am. And I'm able to be so immediately present in a moment without some selfish desire or selfishness creeping in. That joy just is there. And I never knew that was possible for a person like me. I thought that was I thought it was unattainable for me. So, just a great opening line. Joy is to the sinless. So true joy, it comes to the sinless. So we have to do this work to get to these places. This next line is very curious. It's just four words long. It says, "The wise man knows." And I've had conversations about that word "know" with people, and it might seem ridiculous to some, but to know is to not have to believe anymore, right? Like, there's no belief is when there's doubt. To know is beyond doubt, isn't it? Without doubt, though, you can never get to a knowing. Like knowing, doubt and belief have to coincide, and doubt must be worked through to get to the knowing, and the doubt has a purpose. I do believe that in some capacities. But when you can get to a point of knowing, when you can have confidence in your actions, confidence in the way you live your life, confidence in the way you conduct yourself and think and present yourself, when you have that knowing that you are on steadfast, sturdy foundations and grounds because of your own character and integrity, because of doing this work, walking this spiritual life, when we can do that, we have a knowing about us. It's a depth of confidence that is unreachable, and it's not arrogance. It's just a solid state of being. It's unshakable confidence, almost, if we had to use those terms. So the wise man knows. There is no believing. There's no trusting even. Those are good stepping stones to get to the destination of knowing. It's such a bold statement. The wise man knows. I actually love that. I love that. It goes on to say, for him, anxiety, fear, disappointment, and unrest have ceased, and under whatever condition or circumstance he may be placed, his calmness will not be broken. He will not bend and adjust everything. He will bend and adjust everything with capacity and wisdom. That's the expansion on that. The wise man knows, right? So they're talking about what that knowing is, right? In this follow-up sentence, for him, anxiety, fear, disappointment, and unrest have ceased. Ceased. They are no more anxieties, fears, disappointments, and unrest. When you take our selfishness, our passions out of this, when you take those things out of our driving, which really is changing, again, we're talking about this change of heart. Out from the heart is where these motivations are born from. When we are born from a place of love rather than fear, all of these things cease. The anxiety will cease. It'll suss its way out of your life. It'll remove itself. The fear, the disappointment, the unrest will have ceased. The discontentment with life will cease. When you can get to a place like that. which is pretty amazing, actually, at the end of the day. Unrest has ceased, and under whatever condition or circumstance he may be placed, his calmness will not be broken. That's pretty awesome. There's so many people that try to practice that immediate line right there. That they try to, there's a whole philosophies based around just that, which is important to realize, because a lot of people, like Stoicism is a very big resurgence right now. For good reason, I believe. I think there's a lot of strength and a lot of good value in a Stoic practice. But what this is talking about is Stoicism. What the goal of Stoicism is right here. Whatever and under whatever condition or circumstance he may be placed, his calmness will not be broken. Right? That level-headedness, that knowing, that that right frame of mind to take rational, logical, and correct actions is not broken. He will bend and adjust everything with capacity and wisdom. He will take the correct and appropriate actions. It won't be an impulsive action. It won't be a passion-filled action, emotion-filled action. It will be wise and within his capacity to do so, which is really within his within his capabilities, right? Where and his appropriate level to doing something, right? Not overstepping where he shouldn't be overstepping. Owning what's his and taking the appropriate actions here. So, what a great thing this is. This is it tells us right there. I'll read the whole sentence again because it's just great. For him, anxiety, fear, disappointment, and unrest have ceased, and under whatever condition or circumstance he may be placed, his calmness will not be broken, and he will bend and adjust everything with capacity and wisdom. The wise man knows. Nothing will cause him grief. Nothing will cause him grief. That's a huge statement. I have gone through a lot of grief in my life, and I understand a lot of it's because of my own personal desires and how I think life should be, and how I picture my life being going forward. Who should be in it? What should be in it? How it should look? Where it should be? Right? Like, I have a lot of presupposed ideas of what I believe is right for me. And that is what causes us grief, that loss from that frame. And I think this is where he talks about it next. When friends yield up the body of flesh, meaning when a friend dies, when a friend physically dies, the body dies, he knows that they still are. And he does not sorrow over the shell they have discarded. That's strength right there. Man, that's power. So the grief is not ever engaged because the person is not ever gone. The person lives on, and however that looks like for you or your interpretation, maybe later on he'll give us a understanding of what he means by that. You know, should there be more behind it, but he knows that when you're not coming from a selfish place and you allow life to take its course, then when even the people leave your life through death, they're not really gone. They live through you. Their energy is still here, or their spirit's still alive in some capacities, in some ways, and that grief is unneeded. When you can detach from those physical representations, necessarily, kind of, he's the body of flesh that we have associated with that person, and understand that they are the spirit, or the spirit within that body that's running that brain, that's running that body. You'll not mourn when that body of flesh that you expect to be there is gone. You won't have the expectation because it's the person that's been behind it the whole time. That's a huge promise. What a beautiful promise that is. What a calming and consoling promise that is too, almost. He goes on to say, none can injure him, for he has identified himself with that which is unaffected by change. When you identify as your spirit rather than the physical representation, and you remove your dependencies on these things external to us, you can't be injured by anything. That's what he's saying here. When you identify with what is within your control, when you identify with your authentic, true nature and true self, and you're not relying on external things, situations, or people to define who you are or validate you. We are unaffected by change, and none can injure us. All right, so this is the last thing I read twice earlier. The knowledge which brings peace, then, is the knowledge of unchangeable principles arrived at by the practice of pure goodness, which is righteousness. Becoming one with a man becomes immortal, unchangeable, and indestructible. So the knowledge that brings this peace, then, these unchanging principles we talk about all the time, that I reference, these principles and these laws. He talks about law of justice, law of truth, and these things, but really, I refer to them more as also the honesty and the love and the forgiveness, the justice, the courage, the hope, the faith, the service, all of these things as well. All right? When those unchangeable principles we have arrived at by the practice of pure goodness, when we're practicing goodness, which manifests in righteousness. So when we have the knowledge of these unchanging principles and they become one with which a man, when the knowledge of an unchanging principle is arrived at by the practice of pure goodness, becoming one with which a man becomes immortal, unchangeable, and indestructible. When we attach ourselves to these principles rather than these physical representations of, or these physical entities, or whatever it is, these external pleasures to ourselves, these the sins of this world, we could say, the lusts, the passions. When we become one with these principles, a man becomes immortal, unchangeable, and indestructible. The knowledge of these principles brings peace. Sorry, the way this whole thing was worded was difficult to string it together. But so thanks for going through this with me here. So the knowledge which brings peace is the association, the merging of a man with these unchangeable principles. And when a man is defined by unchangeable principles, he becomes immortal, unchangeable, and indestructible. A calm, unwavering, steadfast, strong, resilient. All of these great words that we all strive to be. I don't think there's a human alive that doesn't strive to be rooted in strength and power. And we arrive at this merging. We merge this, where man and principle merge in the practice and action we take, in the practice of goodness and righteousness. It's a fantastic thing. Achievable thing, too. There's hope right there. I know we're running long. The last thing it says here is peace is to the pure. Peace is attainable, but we have to live it. We have to practice it, and we have to grow in it. This is not a simple life. This is not a easy choice in the beginning. It gets easier with practice, but it is a beautiful one. And the promise of peace, it says, joy is to the sinless, peace is to the pure. Joy and peace, two pretty big things I would love to have in my life. And I do get in my life these days, which is a blessing beyond comprehension, which I am eternally grateful for. So, I appreciate everyone sticking on with me for 21 minutes. I know they've been getting longer and longer. The more we talk about this stuff, the more it gets connected, and the more things I have to pull the pieces in together, right? And so I know they're getting lengthy. I'll make an effort to trim them down going forward, but get them back to at least 15 minutes. But there was so much great stuff in this. There's the knowing, the strength, the freedom from anxiety, fear, disappointment, all of these things. It's great stuff to talk about today. So thank you all so much for sticking with me today, and it was a great reading for the world we live in right now. So I'll look forward till tomorrow, March 24th, and until next time, thanks.